Franchising is the most misunderstood and most overlooked form of entrepreneurship. We're here to educate you and help you find the entrepreneur within. Franchising is not all about the French fries.
We find that individuals who are exploring business ownership tend to have a lot of misperceptions and misunderstandings about the franchise industry. So what we want to do is help prospective business owners make confident and educated decisions before moving forward or not moving forward with a business. Welcome to Unpredicted Entrepreneur.
Hi, welcome to episode 91 of Unpredicted Entrepreneur. I'm Roxanne Rapske, and this is my colleague, Sara Waskow. We created this podcast to bring you education and information about business ownership and all things franchising. Our guest today is here to share his personal story of leaving corporate America and starting his own business via the franchise model. Please help me welcome Nathan Baker. He's the owner of True North Restoration of McKinney and Frisco. Thanks for joining us today, Nathan.
Thank you, Roxanne. It's great to be here.
We're excited to hear your story. So we always just start off with background. So tell us a little bit about your background and kind of how you ended up being a franchisee. What led you to franchise ownership?
Yeah, what led you to pick up the phone or email? I think you did a Google search, right? And found me.
Yes.
So what led you, what was behind that Google search and you wanting to learn more about franchising?
Well, how much time do you have?
30 minutes.
I was born at a very young age. One, thanks for having me. And I'll apologize in advance. It's my first time doing something like this, but hopefully others can find it helpful or comical. Backstory. So about a year and a half ago, maybe a little longer, I'd been in the corporate world for roughly 19 years, and I tell people it was awesome. I mean, the friends I met, the skills I developed, the places I got to go, it was, of the 19 years, all but 2 was in financial services, and doing all kinds of different things from sales to collections to repossessions. I mean, I got to do a little bit of everything. But I got to a point, really the last couple years, where I just didn't necessarily feel fulfilled at the end of the day. And I really, for almost 2 years, just had this constant back and forth of I didn't feel fulfilled and I didn't necessarily feel as happy as I once did kind of growing my career in the corporate world. But then I would have this like on my other shoulder, you know, the little person inside of me going, you have nothing to complain about. I had a fairly senior position. I was very well compensated. And so then I'd go, okay, shut up, dummy. There are tons of people that would love to be in the job you have, the lifestyle that it has afforded you and your family. I was the primary breadwinner. I was. I'm not right now, but I was the primary breadwinner for my wife and 3 daughters. And I was like, what do you have to complain about? And then I'd be happy again for a couple days. And then I'd have a crummy day at work or something, just a grind. And I'd go back to like, man, I'm just not fulfilled and happy. So that went on for a couple years. And then I just kept having these signs, and I felt like, and I'm a man of faith, and I felt like it was just the big man upstairs telling me like, this is the time, this is the time. But it's just really, really hard to leave. You know, they're saying the golden handcuffs.
Yeah.
Right? So for me, this went on for a couple years. And I finally got to a point where my company had gone through a few rounds of layoffs, and I had made it through safely. But it was still really taxing because you have, in the corporate world, survivor's guilt.
Yeah.
Like, wow, I still have a job, but my friend, someone who, colleague, no longer does. And without going into all the gory details, I had an opportunity to walk away with a small soft landing. And again, one of the many signs, it just felt like this was the time for me to walk away. Again, being very fortunate in my career, and my wife and I fiscally, live below our means. So we also financially were able to take this chance that I could leave the corporate world. So that, I breezed right past that. That was a tremendously difficult decision. And the number of people I've talked to, my friends who love hearing kind of like my story, that I can just tell are in the exact same position.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, I don't necessarily enjoy what I do every day, but I can't leave.
Yeah.
So it was tough. So I made the decision, I left, and it was there was like 2 months of deprogramming my brain, because you do kind of the Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. My dad was corporate for 30 years. His dad was corporate for 30. That's all I knew. And on one hand, I attribute a lot of my success to that because I didn't know failure. I knew how to work my way up and be successful and lead people and blah, blah, blah. So when you leave that, there's this period of, oh, shoot.
Right.
What do I do now?
Yeah.
So the last thing I'll say is then I had to figure out what I was going to do next. And the way I looked at it was I could go back. I'm here in Dallas-Fort Worth, which is a pretty good job market. And I feel like I've got enough experience and skills and education that I could probably go find another job. I hate to say I can't for sure, but I felt pretty confident I could go find something else if I needed to replace that income. But I talked to my wife, and I took an entrepreneurship, a lot of conversations with my wife, a lot of prayer. I had taken an entrepreneurship class in grad school that really piqued my interest. And I always had this thing in the back of my mind of, I would kind of like to be my own boss. But then I'm also very risk averse, which sounds weird to say that because I am starting a company. So I said, I want to look into doing something on my own before I just jump back in to get another corporate role, right? Because I felt like I knew where that path led. Well, then that opens up, that's almost more challenging because there's so many opportunities. I had conversations with friends that had started their own business, and of course they said, this is the way to do it. My bachelor's in finance, I always liked the idea of being a financial advisor, so I kind of poked around in that world. And I had one conversation with a buddy who owns several Jersey Mikes. And I said, tell me about your story. I bought him lunch. This is what I did to a lot of people that I knew were not in the corporate thing. I said, let me buy you lunch. Pick your brain. So he had spent 20 plus years, I think, with JCPenney. And he told me he really liked the idea of franchising because he liked the idea of a support system. And his quote was something to the effect of, not that I can't screw it up, but it would be somewhat hard to screw up because there's a proven model behind it.
Yeah.
And that stuck with me because it's, I looked at it like, if one end of the spectrum is the corporate world where you have a steady paycheck and I say security.
Yeah.
In the corporate world, you feel secure until
you get
happens.
laid off, right? Yeah.
And then way over here is start something on your own where you have unlimited risk, but unlimited income potential.
Yep.
I felt like franchising was kind of in the middle. Well, I mean, more over here, but. So then I went to Google. Best franchise. I spent days, hours, best franchises to buy, best this, best that. Well, guess what? In Dallas-Fort Worth, they're all taken.
Yes.
Or they're not responding to you.
Yeah.
I think one, UPS was one of the top ones, and I never got a response from them.
Because
I was just questioning, what does top mean?
It depends on who does the survey and what they're looking at.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't necessarily mean best earnings by any means. Maybe it's support. It's a variety of things.
Or best selling or
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the way I looked at it, and I'm very analytical, if I went to 50 websites, I would look at what are the most common ones in the top 10.
Yeah.
And that's
But to
kinda
your
how I got to my
point,
list.
if they're common, they're not available on DFW.
And I learned that, yes. So that brings me to your actual question is, how did I end up talking to Roxanne? I went back to Google.
Yay.
And I had a franchise consultant. Is that the right terminology?
Yeah, it
Franchise
is.
counselor?
Coach, consultant, yes.
Franchise therapist? That's what you are.
That would be very accurate.
I had one that reached out to me probably 6 months to a year before I left corporate. And I took the call. But again, I was still in this period of kind of, I want to leave, but you're stupid, you shouldn't leave. Anyway.
Yeah.
And the conversation felt very salesy to me, frankly. And I quickly realized it's kind of like a realtor. They make money if you sign with them and get paid by the franchises. Anyway, so I said, I want to reach back out to someone. I want to find a good franchise consultant. And again, I think this was just the big man upstairs kind of pointing me in the right direction. I have no idea how I found you, Roxanne. I really don't. I Googled best franchise consultants, did some research, and does yours say Texas and Oklahoma? Is Oklahoma somewhere in your name?
Yeah.
Well, I'm an Okie, Boomer Sooner. So
I'll leave that alone.
I think that appealed to me. And for those of you that are hanging up now, I understand. So, I don't know if I emailed you or sent you a message or filled out a form, but you called me, and it just felt right.
Yeah.
So that's my long backstory. Are we out of time now?
No,
for the rest of the podcast?
no.
No, not at all. So thanks for telling that story, because I think a lot of people have those two people on their shoulders, and they're having those conversations with them, because, it's corporate feels good until it doesn't. And we hear your story. We hear things like, I've made a lot of money for other people, and now I'm ready to do that for myself, for my family.
And you're still young, but I hear from a lot of people, like, life is just too short to wake up and not be fulfilled.
Yeah.
There's still just this desire from many, many people to feel like they're making an impact and some level of contribution. And I'm not hearing that as often from people that have been in the corporate grind, for a long time. They don't see the fruits of their labor. Like, I'm doing all this XYZ, but I don't ever see the end result of what I'm doing.
Right. Like the people that you're helping, and we'll probably get into some of that and how you're like the feel good aspect of what you do.
Yeah.
But something that I want to point out, which is really important, is that you had a supportive spouse. You guys had talked about this, prayed about it. We get folks that call us and they haven't even had a conversation with their spouse about this yet. And they think their spouse is on board, and that spouse might not be. So those conversations with your spouse or your significant other are hugely important to have before you start this process. Don't just,
Well, because she's not involved in the business, I assume, physically, right? But you need her emotional support. You kind of alluded to the fact that you're not the primary breadwinner right now, so it takes a while to obviously build a business. And so you need that person cheering you on and encouraging you and not discouraging you throughout the process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't say it any better. Now, there were a lot of conversations before I decided to leave, a lot of understanding our financial situation, because we haven't even got into, there's funding the business, there's funding our lifestyle.
Yep.
Right. And so, there were a lot of very candid conversations about, if we do this, we're going to have to tighten up a little bit. We haven't had to dramatically change our lifestyle, which is nice. And I go back to, I couldn't have done any of this if I didn't have the experience and some of the financial backing that I obtained through my time in the corporate world.
Yeah.
Not to mention skills and things, but I wouldn't be doing this. I would have gone back and got another job.
Right.
So yes, those conversations, those prayers of, is this what I should be doing, and having her support in doing it. Because if she said, that's a lot of risk, honey, I don't think and she knows me, there's a reason I don't have any hair. I'm pretty risk averse, but yet she still was like, no, I think you should do this.
No, that's awesome. And you were still interviewing though. I remember you went on a couple interviews and you weren't loving it. Maybe it was one and you're just like,
Well, and that happens too. I find two things happen. Sometimes when people are unsure, like, am I going to go to corporate? Am I going to own my own business? And they're exploring both avenues. Some people find a job they get excited about, and that's the path they want to take. But I find some people that once they start the franchise due diligence and really learning about the opportunities, they get less and less interested in the job.
yeah.
So it sounds like obviously that was the path that you took. So tell us a little bit. I know you are the owner of True North Restoration of, let make sure I get it right, McKinney and Frisco. So how, I'm assuming you looked at some other brands, decided on True North. Tell us a little bit about True North and who you serve and kind of why you chose this business.
Okay, that's another fantastic question. So the process itself, this is all foreign to me. So I'm just learning along the way. Franchise, Roxanne and I had several conversations at length about what I was looking for, because I think there's probably different flavors, and you know this better than I, different flavors of what people want. I want to do something on the side. For me, this is replacing income. So I wasn't necessarily looking to have like this pet project. I needed to replace an income. I was also realistic in knowing it wasn't going to happen day one.
Yeah.
And Roxanne's really good along the way of like keeping me in check. So throughout that whole process, then I think you presented me with 4 or 5 franchises that fit my kind of goals or potentially fit my goals. And then you kind of married us up. I got to meet with their business development person. They talked me through their model. They talked me through territories, things like that. It was fascinating at first. And I give Roxanne a ton of credit because she told me this was going to happen. And I said, well, before you give me the companies, I want to like vet them myself. And she literally said no. She told me no.
I've said that many times too.
And I wanted to be like, what do you mean no? I'm the customer. You can't tell me no. She gave me the look at me. I am the captain now. She said, no. I work with people. You need to trust this process. You need to have these conversations with the companies I give you. And if none of them work, fine, but you need to do this. Because
you can't fully understand a business model strictly from a website and whatever else you were going to piddle around and do. Like, it's just, you got to have the conversations and learn the model. And, you picked one that you didn't even think you were going to be interested in. And I'm going to let you tell that story, but we can't tell you how many times that happens where, we present franchises and somebody will say, that's my least favorite one. And here I am. Right?
Yeah.
I never thought I'd own an XYZ business.
And you think about it when you hear the name, for example, you're oftentimes thinking about it potentially. I mean, not always, but I think a lot of people, especially when they're doing research, from a consumer standpoint and not from the role of the owner and what that business, the model allows for you. Like, is it your lifestyle? Is it the income? Is it the rewarding service that you might be providing to someone?
Yeah.
So continue on.
Okay. So candidly, it was very much the first part of every conversation was about the money. I wanted to understand the economic opportunity because yes, I wanted to do something that was fulfilling, but I'm trying to replace an income.
Yeah.
So I can't sit here and be totally altruistic on, I really just wanted to help people. Okay. I can help people on my own time.
That's right. And that's a good thing to point out.
The company, I think of all the companies you put in front of me, there was only one that I didn't necessarily jive with. But I will say, in addition to True North, which I'll touch on in a second, there was a mobile pet grooming, which I really like that business model because I know how much we spend on our dog. I know we have friends that spend a lot of money on their dogs, so I just liked that business model. However, the territory that I could live in was not available, and that franchise had a territory policy that you couldn't do business outside of your territory.
Yeah.
And that was a learning for me about franchises because when you buy a franchise, you're buying a territory. It's zip codes or rooftops, whatever it is, and every franchise has a little bit of a different policy on doing business outside of that territory. So mobile pet grooming, where I live wasn't available, and I feel like that is not necessarily a recession-proof business model. And that was a big thing I was looking for. I didn't know I was looking for it until I got into this process. Another one was commercial and residential fence building, which as much growth as there is in DFW, I really liked that model. That territory ended up getting sold, the territories that I was talking to them about buying. And again, I feel like that was a sign. But another one was commercial residential window cleaning, which I really like that model for a few reasons. In DFW, prices are going through the roof, interest rates really high. I think people were deciding to stay in their homes instead of moving. And I viewed window cleaning on the residential side as a somewhat untapped market. I had some conversations with realtor friends of mine, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we'll bring in a window, especially on higher end homes. We'll bring in someone to like clean windows and stuff like that before we sell houses. I've got a guy, but he's okay. I would gladly use you instead." Yeah. So I felt like it was a fragmented market. That was a very young franchise, and I don't think at that point they had any. And it was a Canadian company. Oh, hopefully, I'm not. That's ruining anything here.
That's okay. Yeah.
If you have to cut that out, I understand.
No, it's fine.
And they didn't have any franchisees in the U.S. yet.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so a big part of going through this process is you can talk to existing franchisees and get some of the real information, right? Because when you're going through, you're talking to the business development person. And listen, I mean, their job is to sell franchises. So. Yeah.
Well, I think it's really good you brought that up because in the beginning, you mentioned that you're risk averse. And obviously you have a family to support, you have an income to replace. And so these are the things that I think many people do not think about and do not recognize the value of when they're doing their due diligence. And so that was, maybe you had thought about it before, but a lot of times people, I hadn't thought about that. And they get enamored with a product or a service and get emotional about it and really don't look at the big picture. So I think it's important that you just shared all the different factors that came into play for you when you were making this decision.
Yeah.
So you chose a restoration company, Damage Restoration. And so just give us a little bit, tell us just about, we want our listeners to know about your business so that maybe if they have a need for your services, they would know who to call. So tell us a little bit about True North and what True North does.
Yeah. So True North, that's obviously where I went.
And why you picked them.
Why I picked. Let me start there. And again, I didn't necessarily know what I was looking for going through the process, but I've kind of reverse engineered what I was looking for and why I went there. One, I like that it is a recession-proof industry.
I always like to say recession-resistant, by the way, because recession-proof, like there's never any guarantees. Of course, with what you do, it could be pretty recession-proof because if you've got water dripping from your ceiling, that's an emergency. So anyway.
Yes, that aspect. And I will quit saying recession-proof, Roxanne, and all things Roxanne,
we just have to be careful because we can't predict the future. So we don't want to mislead someone.
Correct. Well, I view it that way.
You can mislead all you want.
And part of this is some of my past experience in the collection side of financial services. When business is booming, there's a lot more business that needs to be collected upon. And when business is down, you have a lot more delinquencies. So I had seen what recession resistant looks like in financial services. And I liked that aspect because if water's coming through your ceiling, you're not looking at your stock portfolio to figure out if you're going to get it addressed or not.
Yes.
Right?
Correct.
It's
an insurance claim.
And insurance can be involved, which is good and bad.
Right.
So I like the industry is recession resistant. I liked the idea of a young franchise, which True North is. I think I was the 15th-ish franchisee, and now we're up to around 25, so growing.
Yeah.
But young, I liked it for a couple reasons. One, there were more territory options. So going back to like a UPS,
You're right.
there's no territories available for big brand names.
Yeah.
So I could pick, and I got an area in North Texas that I think is where a lot of people are coming to. And you build your franchise based on today's population, your territory, and I know it's growing.
Yeah.
So there's growth. I like the idea of being an early on franchisee because I feel like, maybe I'm wrong, the franchise is really vested in my success. True North really wants and needs Nathan Baker to succeed so that they can go to other people and say, well, look, if Nathan can do it, then you can.
Anybody can do it.
Right? Whereas if I'm a Chick-fil-A,
Yeah.
I'm one of thousands of Chick-fil-A owners, and I'm sure they want them all to succeed. But, and I like the idea of having kind of an impact on the direction of the franchise. So I like that about True North. I liked one of the questions you asked me, was there anything that I didn't want to be involved with franchise-wise? And one of them you said was faith-based. I thought, no, I mean, we're God-fearing. I'm open to it. But again, the money is going to be kind of the
big
driver of why I would get in. And I asked directly Stephanie, my business development rep, I said, I like the idea, but that can be a bad thing. I mean, if True North is in the news talking about abortion, now all of a sudden I'm polarizing potential clients. And I also don't want that as a business owner.
Yeah.
And what I've learned, and I tell people this, I'm interviewing right now for technicians, and I'm pretty transparent about it. It's more that you don't have to be a member of a church. We're not out preaching. It's more about the values of the people that we bring in. As owners, so the other owners I know are values-oriented individuals. The people I'm hiring are values-oriented. And yet we do start some of our meetings or meals with a prayer, and I don't want someone to be uncomfortable by that.
Right.
So I'm transparent about it. But that's really what it's about when we say faith-based. And that appealed to me. It really did. And I remember talking with someone with the franchise early on. He said, I think we can use more of that in the world today.
Yeah.
And so some people might not like it, but that's what,
and
that's what we want to be about. And that's fine.
It's not for everybody.
I thought there's a lot of truth in that.
But you're bringing up a really good point that we make a lot is, yes, this franchise needs to meet your income and your lifestyle goals, but having a cultural fit is so important. This is a long-term commitment in a relationship, and it's like a business marriage. So you need to be comfortable in that relationship, have faith that that's going to be a long-term relationship. So that cultural fit is very, very is as important, if not more important, than the income and the lifestyle goals.
Yes. And that's why I got into franchising, or partly, is the support system. And so the people I'm talking to, other owners, I've seen it. It's come to fruition because other owners that have been around a while are trying to help me out. You know, we've gone to help with some catastrophes, flooding up in Iowa, the hurricanes in Florida, and we're all in it together. And I like that team aspect, even though we have no responsibility to each other. We're each individual owners.
Yeah.
What do we do? I didn't know what restoration was. I thought it was like Chip and Joanna Gaines, like making grandma's old silverware look clean again. We help folks with water damage, fire damage, mold damage, and biohazard. So, you know, why is this water coming through my ceiling? Or how do I get rid of the smoke smell in my house? I've got some growth behind my vanity. I don't know where it came from. Or how do I get the meth smell out of my meth house? These are all things that you could come to me with.
I'm watching Breaking Bad right now, by the way.
Wow.
And so that's what we do. Now, one learning I've had going through this process, and again, this is like I was institutionalized, is at breaking my programming. I thought I do restoration. When I walk in someone's home, I'm there.
Yes.
That's why they called me.
Right.
Huge learning for me is once you're in someone's home and you have their trust, because we do groundbreaking things like show up on time and smell nice and communicate clearly. You do that, and I could almost see homeowners go, oh my gosh, what else can you help me with?
Yeah.
Because nobody wants to go out to the market, to Google or their neighborhood Facebook page and say, does anybody know of this industry? So it's meant I've had to go develop relationships with people that are upstream and downstream of me. Plumbers, construction, mold testing. I got a meatball guy. I mean, anything. It could be anything. Once you're in that consumer's home.
And they trust you.
Yeah. And so that was a little bit of a mindset shift that I had just in like the first couple months.
Awesome.
The other big shift you had was realizing that you didn't need to be necessarily handy, right? That was kind of a big barrier for you to get past. And I think Stephanie really worked with you on that to kind of help you over that hump.
That's correct. And by worked with me, that doesn't mean I'm now handy, because I'm still, and I was very transparent with every franchise that I am the least handy person you've ever met. I mean, I've been behind a desk and in meetings my whole career.
Yeah.
Like not even changing ceiling fans. I cannot reiterate how unhandy I am. And so I was amazed that these franchises would consider somebody like me. And I've learned that is actually what they want. They want business-minded individuals who understand how to build processes and infrastructure and lead people and build culture.
And build teams.
Mm-hmm. Right? There's tons of tradesmen out there who know how to do the thing, the craft. But the reason the franchises aren't targeting them is because they're limited by their own bandwidth, right? They want people who understand scale. And I found that to be true.
Right.
I did need to go higher for that, though. So I brought on my guy Harvey, came on before we even opened our doors. He's still with me, and I feel so blessed to have him join the team. And now we're looking to grow. But I'm looking for people who are handy and do know what they're doing.
That's awesome.
I got trained on it. I'm certified. I can do it. So I've lied. I've become a little bit handy. I'm pretty good at restoration.
In a pinch, you can jump in.
But it's not my strength necessarily. So.
And the franchisor wants you running the business, not
Correct.
Yeah,
working on it and not in it.
Yes.
So if there was someone listening today that is thinking about business ownership, you have graciously shared your background and your story and how you came from sitting behind desk and in meetings to now owning a True North Restoration. What tip might you give a prospective franchisee?
Wow, that's a great question. I would, number one tip is find a good franchise consultant because you guys are a wealth of knowledge and information and perspective. You can say, I've seen people in your shoes and here's what they did.
Yeah.
Because you just don't know what you don't know, truly when you're coming through this process. I think the other thing is just keep an open mind because as I shared,
important.
I did not have an open mind until Roxanne slapped me across the face.
Till the hammer came down.
Yeah. And I think you do have to have a little bit of a framework going into it, because if you don't, it can be very hard to digest. The drinking from a fire hose.
Yeah.
Last thing is have a really good grip on your financial situation. I was very fortunate to have a plan to how to fund the business, how to fund our lifestyle,
Yes.
right? To where I have not had to pay myself yet. I planned to not pay myself the first year. Next month is the first due date. So
Okay, well, you had a strategy. That's
Yes, yes. And I always say, and I know it's easy for people to hear this, but implementing it is a different thing. You really need to have the money to invest, and there's lending available in programs. And, I'm sure you used one of those programs. We don't have to get into all that, but not only the investment, but at least 12 months of supporting your household and your family. And for an independent business, I would say 2 years of supporting your business or supporting your family, because an independent business is going to take longer to ramp up. But great guideline, great thing to share. Being on a budget, knowing your finances is really, really important. Yeah. And go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, if somebody needs your services, how would they get a hold of you?
Well, I like to tell people, I hope you don't need my services, because we're an emergency service. But again, if you've got water damage, fire damage, odor, mold, crime scene or trauma damage, the best place to get a hold of us is actually just give us a call. And our phone number is real easy, 469-393-5544. It's going to be right here on the screen below. Actually, I don't know if they can do that or not.
Yes,
but
it will.
just give us a call. And we do free inspections. That's one of the things we like to do to build our brand, is we're there to help. So we'll come out and give you an inspection for free and give you some advice. And if you want to use us, great. If not, we're glad we can help.
It's a great service, because I just went through this last year. We had water dripping from our kitchen ceiling, and our shower pan upstairs had failed, and it's not pretty. And it's a great service, and it's a needed service. You have to deal with it. Yeah.
Not a question. Well, thank you all for joining us today. Again, I am Sara Waskow. It's Waskow, and I'm joined by Roxanne Rapske, Rapske. Please find us on LinkedIn. We would love to connect with you. We're very active there. If you would like to listen to other podcasts, you can do that wherever you get your podcast. Find Unpredicted Entrepreneur and follow us on our YouTube channel at FranNet of Dallas, Fort Worth, and Oklahoma. Thanks for joining us today. Hope you have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.